Joining us today is the offensive coordinator, Mr. Greg Harbaugh Jr. Now, again, I say Harbaugh the way that it is because I feel like even going into your fourth year, you probably still get Harbaugh on probably about 25% of the equations. But I appreciate you willing to join me in the Media Jackals and be able to have a discussion here ahead of the 2026 season. So, Coach, how you doing this morning?
Awesome. Excited to be here. Appreciate you having me on, man.
So I know that we don't have all the time in the world. I wish I could get 90 minutes with you, but you are a very important man. So let's start with just going back over last season, where now with the benefit of hindsight, you've had 8 months to go back over the 2025 tape. It's how would you characterize last year's offense in your mind? And I guess maybe more importantly, looking future, is what did you take away or learn most from your third year being the coordinator that can help you now going into this fall?
I think the number one thing that I learned is just the value of an experienced quarterback. I the it was a fun season. It was challenging. It was definitely the most challenging that I think I've had personally. Just week to week, game to game, and but it was really enjoyable to go through it with Drake. And like I say that where it wasn't like there's been seasons in my career where you really like you look at the end of it and it's like, man, that was a grind, that was a struggle, whether it was at Division 3 school or it was at another school, or it was just like, okay, you have different challenges and things along those lines. But with Drake, it was just every week was so valuable for him to gain that experience. 13 games, man. Like, I just think it's invaluable. You cannot replicate what he went through winning 8 games with the organization, being the leader of the organization. You can't do it in practice. And you found out that when we went to Buffalo and you saw him do some really good things and you saw him do some things that he had to correct. And then week in, week out, he was consistent with what he was doing, and then when he would make mistakes you have to correct it because you all want to win in the short term. That's the number one thing. But I've always said to him is that his whole career is a long-term project, and it's always been about that plan since the day he got here. And I keep saying that to him, and that's what I love about him is that I've just seen so much maturation and so much growth out of him. But I would say, to answer your question long-winded, I really learned like it's the value of an experienced quarterback because that can just that can help so many things.
So I heard you on Dan Casey's podcast, and I essentially stole the idea and wrote about it here at Big Ten Media Days. I talked to Drake about it. And one of the things you mentioned on that podcast was the idea of giving Drake Lindsey a worksheet. Now, it's essentially homework, more or less, but I want you to do two things for our listeners here. One, can you describe the worksheet that you gave Drake before the bowl game? What's on it? And I guess maybe even more importantly here, why is it important in your mind as the offensive play caller that you know what Drake Lindsey's quote unquote favorite plays are on a given week?
I think it's critically important because he's the guy that is making the ultimate decision. Um, I value his opinion so much, and it's over time that's happened. Like,
Mhm.
he might have come in early on last year and given me an opinion on things, and I probably didn't listen. And because he's got to go through struggles and he's got to go through those experiences. Then, as we went to the bowl game, we got to that point where I wanted to see what he thought of the game plan. I always know going on Friday, we go through it. Every Friday night, he has a routine. And really, every Thursday, we have a routine where Thursday's a big meeting where he's doing a lot of the talking. Friday, he's doing a lot of the talking. And then Friday night at the hotel, Keegan will go through every play call on the sheet with him. He'll read it to him, he'll read it back, and then he'll kind of go through his thought process on every single play.
Okay.
That's kind of his routine. I
Mhm.
know every week he draws up every single play that he goes through that's on the game plan on a sheet of paper or his iPad. Then I added this piece in where I got some I got this from Coach O'Connell. And
You're talking Kevin O'Connell with the Minnesota
yes,
Vikings.
I got this idea, and he would give the starter this worksheet, and it's top five first and second down passes, and it can be categorized week to week based off of quick game, drop back, run action, whatever he feels most comfortable with. What pictures are he seeing based off of the defense that we're facing that week? Then I'll have him rank third and medium and third and long, okay? Because those play calls are critically important because number one, he's got to feel comfortable with making the decision full speed on third down. And I want to know what plays he feels most comfortable with. And I've gone through the week where he might say, Coach, I really don't like this play. And we just throw it out. That will come on Wednesday night after we've already repped third down. And so we'll adjust and then we'll add things and he'll go from there. And then on the in the green zone, will rank his favorite first and second down passes
Mhm.
and favorite third down passes. And it's usually from 3 to 5 plays. Third down's obviously a little bit different because you don't carry as much down there. And I think that that was very valuable because I can call the game based off of what he feels most comfortable with, especially attacking um, the defense early on. And it might be where he has a favorite play on first and second down there in the green zone, and I might not get to it till the fourth quarter, knowing that he loves that play. It might be something else that we're trying to set up throughout the course of the game, and he understands that. But everything he puts on that sheet now, um, I think is incredibly valuable because it's going to allow him to play fast and play confident.
Well, that's where the funny part of the story too is how you implemented it, which was
Mhm.
prior to the bowl game. And why I say it's funny is because I think about the game-winning touchdown in the Rape Bowl to Jalen
Yeah.
Smith, where I talked about it again with Drake in Chicago, where you called that play because that was one of Drake's favorite plays. Now, it wasn't the perfect situation, and I'll let you get into that, but I also told him, "Hey, buddy, I know you made the throw to Jalen Smith, but did you see Drew Bibber wide open near the goal line, which is where the ball was supposed to go?" And he chuckled and was like, "Yeah, I got to see that 48 hours in hindsight." But even why I want to stress this is so important is just like, again, that was it was third and long, third and 7 plus overtime. You guys are down something. But as far as the way he explained it to me, Greg, that again, that wasn't the perfect situation for that favorite play call of his, but you went to it and it ended up working out.
Well, it's twofold. Yeah, it was a first and second down call, and then it went to one of those things where I literally said to him, "I was like, this is your favorite call down here in this situation,"
Mhm.
and he could have called the play without even me saying anything. And I think the biggest reason why the ball was completed, and yes, we talked about the read, and it's actually a great teach play of that concept
Okay.
because you get it in training camp, you get it in spring ball where it's okay that you're off that particular safety. That safety played the outside route.
Mhm.
But the thing is that Jalen and him had so much synergy and so much chemistry that the ball was thrown in the exact spot that that post should be thrown.
Mhm.
And we talk about the landmark of Jalen on that route. He knew. I mean, he let it go, and Jalen made a heck of a catch. And the rest is history from there. And then it's just he was able to play confident. He was able to play fast, but you still got to make the right read, and that's what we joke around about it and we
Yeah.
talk about it. But like, it's a great learning moment for him. But it also proves to him that I am comfortable with whatever he feels comfortable with because he is the most important guy on the field. And then from there, it all trickles down. How he plays and how he runs the offense is a direct result in what we're probably going to get that day.
So one of the quote unquote questions I get all the time from national media, whoever it may be, even the fans, and I think it's an important question for the offensive coordinator to give his thoughts on is what is the next step for Drake Lindsey? Because that is such a broad question. You can speak statistically, you can speak again physically, where again now he's our slim king at 16.5% body fat, which he's very proud of, and he misses getting his wet burrito with your quarterback coach there, Keegan O'Hara. Trust me, now that he's down to 228 pounds. But it's such a broad question, but it's obviously very important because starts 14 through 26, in theory, should look a little bit different than 1 through 13. So I'm getting very long winded in saying you can take it wherever you want. But when you've talked with Drake here over the last 8 months, what are the next steps for him?
The first thing is this is very broad. Running the offense, number one. He's not going to have to think pre-snap as much as he thought about it and thought he had gotten to that point last year where it was like, man, I can control this motion, I can control this shift. I know, like, there are so many things now that he did in the summer, did in the spring, where he can just the operation of the offense and running the show is second nature to him now. It's instinct,
Mhm.
and I think that's the one of the things that we hope to see. The second thing is he had 164 incomplete passes last year. Um,
Not
I
that you
watched
know
every
that number specifically and haven't dove into the stats a couple times. Yeah.
well, I watched after the season, I watched it and I watched every incompletion. And I wanted to see where he has come since the season through spring, winter, the summer. And I watched them all yesterday.
Okay.
And I watched them all again. And the number one thing that he has to really, really show and over the next 3.5 weeks of training camp is when we call a pass play, the ball has to go where the scheme calls for it to go. And I think that that is where he is going to take the biggest strides. He already has, and how he's developed in the meeting room, on the field. That is really improved, and I think he did some very very nice things last year. And then there were some things that were great growth moments for him.
Mhm.
And the best quarterbacks, you hear all these quarterback coaches and offensive coordinators at the highest level. They talk about the quarterback just is a direct extension of the offensive coordinator from a play caller standpoint. When it goes to him in the huddle, we know exactly what's happening. It's the same in the run game. When you call a run, you want the running back to hit it in the exact aiming point that he's supposed to hit it at. The same thing at quarterback. You want the route to be the same exact way. And they have ways to be able to defeat that based off of coverage, technique, and things along those lines. And I think that's the next step offensively. And the best offenses you see, exactly what's getting coached is showing up on tape. And I think that that's where he's really going to take the next step, because he is talented. You know, you'll be able to see down the field throws, intermediate throws, but he's really going to need to improve in that aspect. And I'm excited about it because I think he has. So those are the two things. And then if I add one other thing, it would be just those under 5 yard throws that where I really am encouraged by him, and just that's all fundamentals. You know, not missing the check down, not missing the arrow when he gets to the back, the quick game throws, all those things that are direct. Um, they complement the run game and they complement the offense, like being able to be a high completion percentage on those types of things.
Now you mention it, and it's probably the biggest talking point about your offense, and it's something that we've talked about every Wednesday during the fall. It's something that we've talked about when we get availability here in the spring. It's something I'm going to ask you about here in the month of August, and that's the run game. Where
Mhm.
when Darius Taylor was healthy in the 4 games last year, where he got 19 or more carries, you ran the football. In the
Yep.
9 games he wasn't, it was a much bigger struggle, and that's where I just spent time in Chicago talking with it with your head coach. But when you look at it now going into year 4, what are the biggest keys if you guys are going to be able to run the football efficiently, effectively, consistently, or what does that statement even mean to you in and of itself?
Okay, so every offseason I sit down and I reflect, and this is the fourth year of me being the offensive coordinator here.
Yeah.
And I'm I'm really grateful for the opportunity every year because I think I learn something new every single season, and I learn a ton. But there's usually like one or two things that are just big picture that I learn and I attempt to grow from. And I think when I look back on the previous 3 years, the first thing that I would do is I would put on some team that I liked and I would watch their pass game. And this January, when I got back in, when we finished up with recruiting and all that, I sat down and I watched every single run that we had last season. Um, I watched other teams run the ball. I then looked at it. Number one, from an identity perspective. And I didn't look at us. I looked at other teams. I looked at, okay, what are the best teams in the country in the National Football League that are running the football? The number one thing that you look at when you see that is it's an identity. They
Mhm.
hang their hat on 1 to 2 runs. And specifically, it's usually one run. I'll use examples.
Okay.
Um, the LA Rams, they put the ball down, push comes to shove. They are running duo downhill from under center. Number
Give
one
the
thing.
very basic level of what a duo run is for the listener.
So a duo run is just a downhill penetrating run.
Okay.
The running back's aiming point is going to be the A gap. He's going to be downhill. It is a physical mindset run.
Okay.
And that's what they do. You put on the San Francisco 49ers. Their number one run is the outside zone play. At the end of the day, that's what they're going to run. Everybody knows that's what's going to happen. I looked at college teams. I looked at the University of Miami, and when I watched them, I saw that running back because that running back was exceptional at what they were asking to do. They were in the pistol, and they ran downhill, physical run. I think it's the identity of that. Then, secondly, I looked at, okay, how can I create the most physical environment for our offensive line? Because at the end of the day, when you're an offensive lineman and when you're a kid, the number one thing that they say to them is like, okay, you go to be an offensive lineman in high school, they're going to teach you to be physical. So, what can we do in college that we can just say, okay, here's a physical mindset. We're going to come at you. We're going to put our face on our aiming point and we're going to be physical. Number one, that's the number one thing. At the end of the day, when I put on the tape, I want to be able to see our offensive line and our tight ends be physical at the point of attack. Most of the time, when you look at an outside zone play,
Mhm.
sometimes that's not the most physical run. It has to complement the downhill run, whether it's out of the shotgun or whether it's from under center. And that's what the biggest thing. And so I go back to 23, I go back to 24, and I look at, okay, I wanted to be something offensively in a run game perspective that maybe we needed to adjust. The first run we put in 2025 was outside zone. The first run that we're putting in is a downhill run. That's what it is. Like when
Mhm.
you put on the tape for 12 games at the end of the year, I hope that people can say and see that the number one thing was we had an identity in the run game and we were physical. That's the only thing that at the end of the day, that's the only thing I care about because just like what Coach Ibrahim says every day to the running backs and every day to me, 4 plus 4 plus 4 equals a first down. And
Mhm.
it's all twofold. The O line coach has to be in unison with the running back coach. The running back coach has to be in unison with the O line coach, and the aiming points and the tracks of the first two steps up front have to be a certain way. The running back has to be on his aiming point, the same exact spot. Same thing I mentioned with Drake. If I call a pass, the ball has to go where the scheme calls for it to go based off of the coverage that we're getting. Same thing up front. We get a movement up front. They got to be trained in that. The running back has to be trained based off of, okay, what's his aiming point on duo? What's his aiming point on inside zone? What's his aiming point on outside zone? And then from there, once the plays started, we have to react and we have to train the guy to make that quick decision so that we can get that 4 yards. And those are the two things. At the scheme, man. It's one of those things where you can work on backside cutoffs up front. You can work on the tracks of the outside zone. You can work on inside zone from the shotgun. You can work on D gap reads. You can work on all those things. Number one thing is identity and physical. And that's what I looked at where I was not pleased with myself on the physical nature of the offense. And then that's not even me grouping in the wideouts and and how they're involved in all this stuff and how Coach Frichty's done a fantastic job of teaching those guys the scheme and understanding what they have to accomplish and what they have to do. It's twofold. I want to be explosive. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to be physical. Bottom line.
Seems like that would make a lot of sense in the conference that is the Big Ten Conference. Um,
Correct.
so that's where a couple final ones here to close would be as much as it is about Drake Lindsey taking the next step, it's also going to be somebody's got to catch the ball from Drake Lindsey, where your
Right.
top three tight ends from last year are gone. 4 of your top 6 receivers who played snap-wise are gone. So it's going to be a big discussion topic here from now until Eastern Illinois. So when you look at, let's just stick with the receiver room where you do get Jalen Smith and Javon Tracy back. You've got Noah Jennings, Zion Steptoe, Hayden Moore has gotten a lot of recognition here this offseason. For Frichty's room, how would you kind of characterize it? As I think there's a lot of question marks, at least from a 30,000 foot view.
As I've said before, the receiver room is a job based position group,
Hmm.
and that's how we are as an offense. And if the way we sit down and we talk about it as a staff, we have to put those guys in positions to do what they can do at a high level, and we have to identify that over the course of the next 3.5 weeks. And I think our coaches have done a great job since January of identifying what we're going to be and then adjusting based off of what they can do and what they can handle. And then there's certain things that are non-negotiables, just like I talked about in that receiver room. They're going to block and they're going to learn why they're blocking and why they're doing certain things within the scheme. Then from there, certain guys are going to have bigger roles based off of what they show over the next 3.5 weeks. And I look at the spring as okay, we're figuring out who we're going to be. Okay, what do we need to take into the summer to improve on based off of what they showed that they can do? And that's one thing that I'm very encouraged by in May, June, and July is how our receivers have attacked the summer. And when we're out there with them and we're working on techniques and fundamentals, that's been a huge point of emphasis across the board offensively, but just how they've approached their technique and fundamentals and how they've shown, okay, we are executing the certain things on air. Maybe it's in a controlled individual drill with Coach Frichty where they're really working on their techniques and fundamentals. Now, when we get to practice, they have to then implement those techniques and fundamentals into the scheme and operate fast and decisive against the defense. And I'm very, very encouraged by the group as a whole because I think that they understand the job based system, which then trickles down to them being as selfless as possible. And those guys are going to have to know that one day, one game, one guy might have 7 catches and the other guy might have 6 catches and then that guy might have 3 catches. It's my job to ultimately put the ball in their hands depending on what they can handle and find those playmakers um, and see who can do it. But I don't really want to single out certain guys because I'm very encouraged by the entire group. And I'm really encouraged by when we take the field for the opener. Let's see how they do. Let's see how they operate when they get the lights on them and they get a crowd out there. And but we have to put them in that environment and put them in those situations to see how they succeed in practice.
So the final one for you today is going to be this. Again, it's just about 10 words here, and I want to just throw it at you. Is what has you confident that in year 4 now as the offensive coordinator at the University of Minnesota, this will be your most explosive and efficient offense in your tenure?
Most confident, I think it's the players. Um, it's a players' game. Like I mentioned, whenever during this scheme is scheme.
Mhm.
I'm very excited about Ashton Beers. That how he's handled himself and how smart he is. His demeanor. He is the same person every day. I'm excited about having Drake back. I'm excited about having that continuity. I'm excited about Greg Johnson taking that leadership role day in and day out in the weight room. I'm excited about what I just talked about with the receiver group of how they've come together as a not they've gone from like a group of guys that are all vying for touches to really I think a brotherhood in that room and how I see them all connect. And Mo Mo and how he's developed that running back room and how hard he grinds them and works them to be as mentally tough and physically tough when they carry the football. it's just that's what's got me so encouraged. I think the synergy that we have as a staff, and then that infiltrates through the players. And I think that I've really been excited about that. Every day when we come in, I see these guys come in, they stop in and they hang out with the staff. It's cool to see that growth. And I think that that's something that I learned over the years. You
Mm.
know, I go through back to year one where it's like, man, you get all these ideas and you have all these things in your head, and you're like, all right, we're just going to go out there and we're going to run them. And it's going to look great. And that's not how football works.
Right.
It takes time. It takes patience. It really puts everything into perspective, and that's why, like I said to start this thing off, that I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be the offensive coordinator for the fourth straight year, because all these things that I learned years ago, I've really taken it from January and I've put it all into one. And then after Wisconsin, the day after Thanksgiving, we'll look up and see what we look like. You know, and I think I'm very encouraged just by our players' demeanor, attitude, their work ethic, and then the staff. I'm really grateful for our staff and just how they pour into these guys daily.
Well, that's going to do it for this one. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're a very busy man here with fall camp on the horizon. I will see you during fall camp. And unfortunately, or fortunately for you, I don't know how you view me as a part of the Media Jackal conglomerate on Wednesdays when we get to sit there. You're gonna unfortunately be seeing this face every Wednesday asking you about the run game, Drake Lindsey, why'd you make XYZ call? But I appreciate you being willing to join us here on the podcast.
Can't wait, man.